Lebanon vows military response after deadly Israeli incursion. Tragedy strikes as teenage cricketer dies in Australia training accident. French authorities nab 5 more in Louvre jewelry heist. Chaos in Dar es Salaam as police clash with protesters after disputed election. Good afternoon, welcome to The World in 30 Minutes on Politics and Business Television. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oyibo. Many thanks for joining us. Details of this news stories and more content to come after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in details. The fragile calm in Gaza has collapsed into despair as Israeli airstrikes killed over 100 Palestinians, mostly women and children, in what is now considered the deadliest breach of the recent ceasefire. The strikes, ordered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, follows accusation that Hamas violated the U.S. brokered truce by killing an Israeli soldier. Witnesses report that homes, schools, and residential blocks in Gaza City, Beit Lahia, and Khan Yunis were among the hardest hit. Palestinian residents say the renewed bombardment has erased any sense of safety, with many now doubting the viability of the ceasefire. One of the residents told Al Jazeera that they just want to live in safety, echoing widespread calls for a complete and lasting end to the war. While U.S. President Donald Trump insists the truce remains intact, international mediators are expressing frustration and urging both sides to recommit to peace. The humanitarian toll continues to rise, deepening the crisis and the war-torn enclave. Tensions have escalated along the Israeli-Lebanon border following a deadly incursion by Israeli forces, prompting a strong response from Lebanese President Michael Aoun. In a televised statement, Aoun declared that the Lebanese army will confront any further violations of the country's sovereignty, describing the recent raid as a blatant act of aggression. The incursion reportedly left several civilians dead and has sparked outrage across Lebanon, with calls for immediate retaliation and international condemnation. The Lebanese military has since been placed on high alert, with reinforcements deployed to border areas amid fears of further escalation. Regional leaders and global observers are urging restraint, warning that continued hostilities could destabilize the already fragile security landscape in the Middle East. As diplomatic channels scramble to de-escalate the crisis, Lebanon's stance signals a potentially volatile chapter in its long-standing tensions with Israel. Meanwhile, the United States has confirmed the killing of 4 individuals in a recent military strike on what officials describe as an alleged drug trafficking vessel. According to a statement from the Pentagon, the operation was part of ongoing efforts to disrupt international narcotics networks believed to be fueling violence and instability across the region. The vessel was reportedly under surveillance before being targeted in what authorities claim was a precision strike. Details surrounding the identities of the deceased and the exact location of the incident remained limited, pending further investigation. Human rights groups have called for transparency, urging U.S. officials to provide evidence supporting the vessel's alleged criminal ties. As scrutiny mounts, the strike has reignited debate over the use of lethal force in counter-narcotics operations and its implications for international law and civilian safety. A promising teenage cricketer has died following a tragic training accident in Australia, sending shockwaves through the sporting community. The incident occurred during a routine practice session where the young athlete reportedly sustained fatal injuries. Emergency services responded swiftly, but efforts to revive the teen proved unsuccessful. Authorities have launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the accident, with early reports suggesting it may have involved a ball impact or equipment malfunction. The cricketing world is mourning the loss, with tributes pouring in from teammates, coaches, and fans across the country. Sports officials have emphasized the importance of safety protocols and pledged to review training procedures to prevent future tragedies. As family grieves, the nation reflects on the fragility of life and the risk young athletes face in pursuit of their dreams. In a dramatic political shift, the Netherlands Centrist Party has emerged victorious in the latest general elections, dealing a significant blow to far-right factions that had gained momentum in recent years. Preliminary results show the centrist bloc securing a commanding lead, signaling a renewed public appetite for moderate governance and pragmatic policies. Voter turnout was notably high, reflecting widespread engagement in what many viewed as a pivotal moment for the country's political direction. Analysts attribute the centrist win to growing concerns over polarization, economic stability, and climate policy, areas where far-right parties struggle to gain broad appeal. The outcome is expected to reshape coalition talks and legislative priorities in the Dutch parliament as celebrations erupt among centrist supporters. European observers are closely watching the Netherlands as a potential bellwether for shifting political tides across the continent. In another development, French prosecutors have confirmed the arrest of 5 additional suspects linked to the daring jewelry heist at the Louvre Museum. The arrests made in coordinated raids across multiple locations bring the total number of individuals in custody to 10. Authorities say the suspects are believed to have played key roles in the planning and execution of the high-profile theft, which saw valuable pieces stolen from a secured exhibition space earlier this year. Investigators are now piecing together the network behind the operation, which has drawn comparisons to cinematic-style robberies. The Louvre, one of the world's most visited museums, has since tightened security measures and is working closely with law enforcement to recover the stolen items. As the probe deepens, officials remain confident that the arrest will lead to critical breakthroughs in dismantling the criminal ring responsible. Meanwhile, a massive police operation targeting drug gangs in Rio de Janeiro has resulted in the deaths of at least 130 people, marking the deadliest raid in Brazil's history. The operation, carried out in the Penha complex and other low-income neighborhoods, involved over 2,500 officers using helicopters, armored vehicles, and ground troops. Authorities say the raid was planned for months and aimed to flush suspects into a forested area where special forces lay in wait. However, the scale of the violence has sparked outrage, with residents describing the event as a massacre and human rights groups calling for accountability. In the aftermath, mourners gathered in the street, laying bodies in central squares and chanting for justice. Brazil's president expressed horror at the death toll, while Rio's governor faces mounting pressure to resign amid accusations of excessive force. The state's public defender's office confirmed the final death count, which includes 60 suspected gang members and 4 police officers. As protests erupt and investigations begin, the country grapples with the consequences of militarized policing and the urgent need for reform in its approach to public security. You're still watching The World in 30 minutes live on Politics and Business Television. Still to come, Caribbean nations reel from Hurricane Melissa's trail of destruction. Stay with us. Welcome back. Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba are assessing the widespread devastation left behind by Hurricane Melissa, one of the most powerful storms to hit the region in recent history. The hurricane made landfall in Jamaica as a Category 5 storm, flattening homes, triggering landslides, and leaving over 77% of the island without power. In Haiti, torrential rains caused rivers to overflow, killing at least 25 people and trapping dozens under collapsed buildings. Cuba was hit overnight by the storm as a Category 3 hurricane, damaging infrastructure and displacing thousands. Emergency crews across the three nations are working around the clock to clear debris, restore essential services, and deliver aid to affected communities. Jamaica has declared a national disaster with over 25,000 people sheltering in evacuation centers. International relief efforts are ramping up as officials warn of long-term recovery challenges. With Hurricane Melissa now moving toward the Bahamas, the Caribbean braces for further impact while mourning the lives lost and the homes shattered in its wake. In a bold move that has stirred global attention, U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the immediate resumption of nuclear weapons testing, citing the need to maintain parity with other nuclear-armed nations. The directive, announced during his visit to South Korea, marks the first time U.S. has officially restarted such tests in 1992. Trump emphasized that the U.S. must act on an equal basis with rivals like Russia and China, warning that China could surpass American nuclear capabilities with 5 years. In a related development, Trump also gave South Korea the green light to build its own nuclear-powered submarine, a move hailed as a strategic boost to regional security. The submarine will be constructed at the Hanwha Philly shipyard, a facility recently acquired by South Korean firm. This decision follows successful trade negotiations and a $350 billion investment pledge from Seoul into the U.S. economy. The announcement comes amid heightened tensions with North Korea, which recently conducted cruise missile tests in its western waters. Coming to Africa, a humanitarian crisis is unfolding in Sudan's western Darfur region, where the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) have reportedly killed at least 1,500 civilians in the city of Al-Fashir over the past 3 days. According to the Sudan Doctors Network, the victims were targeted as they attempted to flee the besieged city, with survivors recounting mass executions, attacks on hospitals, and widespread atrocities. Human rights groups and regional governments have condemned the killings, describing them as a true genocide and a part of a deliberate campaign of extermination. Satellite imagery analyzed by Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab supports these claims, revealing clusters of bodies and large areas of red discoloration consistent with mass violence. The RSF, locked in a brutal power struggle with Sudan's military, has intensified its offensive in Darfur, reigniting fears of ethnic cleansing, reminiscent of past conflicts. As international pressure mounts, calls for urgent intervention and accountability grow louder, with the global community watching closely amid one of the deadliest episodes in Sudan's ongoing civil war. Tanzania's largest city, Dar es Salaam, erupted in violent protests following a chaotic presidential election that saw key opposition figures barred from the race. Hundreds of demonstrators defied a government-imposed curfew, taking to the streets in neighborhoods like Mbagala, Gongola, Mboto, and Kiluvia. Police respond with tear gas and live gunfire, attempting to disperse crowds who had set polling stations ablaze and chanted slogans demanding electoral justice. Internet access was cut off across the city, further fueling public outrage. The unrest stems from widespread anger over the exclusion of President Samia Suluhu Hassan's main challenges, which many citizens view as a deliberate suppression of democratic choice. Protesters called for an independent electoral commission and free political participation, while regional officials warned of strong action against those disrupting peace. As tension mounts, the international community is closely monitoring the situation, urging restraint and dialogue to prevent further escalation. And that wraps up the program. But before we go, the headlines again. Lebanon vows military response after deadly Israeli incursion. Tragedy strikes as teenage cricketer dies in Australia training accident. French authorities nab 5 more in Louvain heist. Chaos in Dar es Salaam as police clash with protesters